people, not the campaign body. I work hand in hand with our teams on the ground in the states who are talking to voters to make sure we elect Cory. Supporting Cory is so easy for me. His entire career, he's supporting issues I care about long before they are part of the national conversation. Whether it's supporting LGBTQ Americans, working to combat climate change, or common sense gun reform. Cory's entire career is standing up for all of us. That's why he's running for president, to unite everyday Americans to create a more just and fair America. Guess what? Can't do it without you. That's why we're here today, because you're fired up. And if you're here, I bet you're not standing on the sidelines. Am I right? Am I right? That's why we're asking you to help ensure we get Cory on every single ballot. I have a couple of volunteers in the room. Can you raise your hands? Where are my volunteers at? Great. Over them, lingering over there. You can find me next door in Virginia. We have to get petition signatures to make sure we get Cory on the ballot. And that's where you come in. So please find them, find me. I'm in this print dress that's hard to miss. And we'll get you set up to help make sure Cory's on every single ballot. Thank you for being on the team, and I'm so pumped Team Cory comes out, rain or not. We're ready to elect Cory president. Now introducing my boss and our amazing campaign manager, Adisu Demisi.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good evening, Washington, D.C. You're going to see somebody in a second who is dressed uncomfortably similar to me. But before I introduce the second best looking bald black man you're going to hear from tonight, I just want to say a couple thank yous. First of all, to Chelsea and the team, my team that put this event together. Thank you all. You did a great job. We had nearly 500 people buy tickets to this event here in Washington, D.C. So give yourselves a round of applause and give Chelsea a round of applause as well. Yeah, thank you. Second of all, again, to volunteers, folks who are volunteering for the event, our interns, a couple other folks who are here putting in the time. You're the lifeblood of this campaign, and you will be taking us through February, next July, and all the way to the White House next November. So anybody who's a volunteer or an intern, thank you guys so much. And last to the guy who hired me. I just want to tell a little story. For those of you who don't know me, I ran Cory's Senate race, actually. Put him in my... Thank you! Put him in the Senate, I guess now 6 years ago. And I remember the day when he offered me this job, and he said, the most important thing to him was was obviously winning ultimately, but he wanted to run a campaign that reflected his values. And it's something he's done since he ran for city council back in 1998. And I am just so proud that over the course of the, what has it been, 5.5 months since he declared on February 1st, that we run a campaign that I think embodies the best of who this person is. And I get to see him in a lot of moments where these cameras aren't here, and when we're just sitting in a room talking about his dreams for this country and what he wants to do when he's president. And the one thing I can tell you is that Cory Booker is somebody who's motivated and wants this job for the right reasons. He's somebody who is deeply, deeply motivated by the people who are in his neighborhood, the people who are in this room, the people around this country that he meets who are struggling to get by, who are trying their best to make it in this country, and who deserve a president who's not going to talk down to them, to demean them, but actually going to try to lift them up every single day. And frankly, after this guy in the White House is gone, and he will be gone, together and actually live up to the hopes and dreams and embody the best of what this country is. And I promise you, the next man who is about to come out here and take this microphone is somebody who embodies the best of what it means to be an American. So without further ado, the next president of the United States, Senator Cory Booker. People. Y'all just showed up. Let me tell you something.
actually says something, because what folks don't understand is this campaign, I don't mean a primary, I'm talking about the larger campaign for our country. We are who we are because of grassroots activists. It is the power of the people that is greater than the people in power. It is people united cannot be defeated. In fact, it is folks like you who understand that democracy is a verb, that it is something that we have to take responsibility for, act upon. I am blown away right now, where so much of our national news is being dominated by hate and bigotry being spewed from the highest offices in the land. And it is hurtful, it really is. But yet, we have to understand what King said. He said that we have to repent in this day and age, not for the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and inaction of the good people. It's almost like folks don't understand how change has always been made in America. It has never been made. You don't think women got the right to vote because a bunch of guys got together on the Senate floor around the 1900s and said, hey fellas, let's give women the right to vote. Ready? Break. No. It came from a grassroots activism, multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-gender coalitions that made it happen. Trust me, I know this. The longest filibuster in the Senate is a guy named Stump. We didn't get civil rights because Strom Thurmond came to the Senate floor one day and said, y'all, I've seen the light. Those Negro people should have some rights. No, we got it because of organization, because of activism, because of creative artists, of activism that actually were able to move this country forward. And when that coalition became the new American majority, folks from all backgrounds getting together, that's how we made change. And that's why I'm warning folks in this prime. I'm trying to speak to my own party first. We cannot make the mistake of defining our party by what we're against. We've got to talk about what we are for. Yep. But all these pundits tell me the polls. They say on the poll, I hear this sometimes when I watch 24-hour cable, they're like, well, we polled Democrats and the number one thing they want is just someone who could beat Donald Trump. And when I am home hanging out with Ben and Jerry, I get upset. I throw my chubby hubby to the floor. And I say, we've got to have bigger ambitions than that. Beating Donald Trump is the floor. It is not the ceiling. Beating Donald Trump gets us out of the valley. It doesn't get us to the mountaintop. I got in politics because I want to get to the mountaintop. I got into politics because I believe we are better when we find ways to create that new American majority where we stand together and fight together and know what patriotism means. Patriotism is love of country, and you cannot love your country unless you love your fellow countrymen and women. Now don't get me wrong. I crossed some of my friends on the Senate floor today. Love is not a sentiment. Love doesn't mean we always like each other. What love says is that, hey, if your kids don't have a great public school to go to, my kids are lesser off. That if your family has someone in prison being denied their dignity and their rights, it is an assault of the dignity and rights of my family. Sure is. If your uncle or aunt is putting aside their life-saving prescription drug because they can't afford it, it is a danger to the health and well-being of our society as a whole. That's what love says. Love is sacrifice. It is struggle. It is knowing we are all in this together. And so you all got to understand something. I am here, you are here because of this type of patriotism. And it's not the kind that was defined in Washington, it was defined by folk like the ones in this room. Look, it was 50 years ago this summer that my parents were living right here in Washington, D.C., but they needed to move up to Jersey. And so a whole lot of Jersey love in here. Leather, so come on. The state that invented the drive-in movie theater, come on. Virginia's for lovers, please. Whole lot of love going on in the drive-in movie theaters. All right, I'm sorry, we digress, people, we digress. 50 years so when my parents were going to look for houses to live in Jersey, in the nicest neighborhoods with great public schools, that was their guide, great public schools, every time they would show up 50 years ago, my parents would be met by a real estate agent who would lie to them and say, oh, I'm sorry, this house is sold, it's been pulled off the market, because they were white neighborhoods. And so what did they find? Some kind of senator that stood up for, or congressman? No, they found ordinary Americans from that community. Diverse group, mostly white folks, though, that said, you are coming into our community. To deny you rights is to deny me rights. We're going to stand up for you. And they set up this sting operation. This group that used to meet on the weekends with some lawyers who organized it. Every time my parents would go look at a house, they would be told that the house was sold. They would leave, and the white couple, the volunteer white couple, would pretend like they were buying homes and find out the house was still for sale. And so on the house that I grew up in, my parents were told, I'm sorry, this house has been sold, it's pulled off the market or whatever. The white couple came and found out the house was still for sale. And they put a bid on the house. And the bid was accepted. And papers were drawn up, a closing was set, except for on the day of the closing, the white couple did not show up. My father did, and a volunteer lawyer. And they walk into the real estate agent's office. This should be the end. But no, the real estate agent was so upset he got caught that he punched my father's lawyer in the face and sicked a dog on my dad. Now let me tell you, as I was growing up in this great town, every time my dad would tell this story, the dog would get bigger. Eventually it was like, boy, I had to fight a pack of wolves to get you in this house. And so you have to understand, as I was growing up, my parents never let me forget who we are and who we must be to each other. They let me know that we are here because of that conspiracy of love. That we're here because Americans stood together, Americans of different race, different religion, different backgrounds, all standing together for common ideals, common purpose, and common cause. Don't get me wrong, the gardens of our democracy have never, ever been free of the weeds of demagoguery, bigotry, and hate. They've always been there. Every generation has had them. What has defined us, though, has not been the bigots and the demagogues and the fearmongers, but how we chose to respond. Look, there was the Red Scare, McCarthyism. There was this national #1 radio show. It was a guy named Father Conklin with his anti-Semitic screeds. Listen to the language of this president. It's the same as a political party that rose up. There was an anti-immigration, viable political party in America, but back then they were against Irish immigrants and German immigrants. They were called the Know-Nothings. But how did we beat them in the past? It should inform what we do today. Did we beat Bull Connor down in Birmingham? Did those great civil rights activists beat him by bringing bigger dogs and bigger fire hoses? No. They came together, created powerful coalitions, a new American majority that, hey, they actually were able, as creative artists and activists, in a moral moment in the country, then they called to the moral imagination of our nation. They called to the consciousness of our country. Expanded coalitions, overcame the bigotry, changed laws, and advanced America. That's where we are right now. We are in a moral moment. This election is not a referendum on one guy in one office. It is a referendum on us, on who we are and who we must be to each other. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people trying to tear us apart and divide us. It's not just the guy in the White House. Heck, the Russians, literally, their game plan, using our social media to try to make us hate each other. Trying to insinuate divisions in our country, because they know in a democracy, if the House is divided, it can't stand. And so if we are going to understand that democracy is a verb, we've got to be uniters. We've got to be people that wake up the empathy of others and get it to be far more courageous, so we see the children who are drinking from lead pipes, so that we see the people who are having their addiction treated with jail, so that we see the folks retiring after years and decades of work but are still below the poverty line, that we see the teachers with mounds of school debt and still reaching their pockets to pay for things for kids in their classrooms. We have to have a more courageous empathy for each other. We've got to have a revival of civic grace. And I know some people disagree with me. I'm telling you, the 2020 elections do not stand for the year, guys. It stands for the number of people running, 2020. And y'all got choices. If you want somebody that is going to fight fire with fire, I ran a fire fire department as a mayor. It's not a good strategy, but go with them. I'm jumping into an Iowa town hall. We were psyched, just like this. Hundreds of people beyond the expectation. I'm about to run up on the stage. Big guy I see by the stage. He puts his arm around me. He sees me, big guy, former tight end for Stanford University, former All-American football player. The older I get, the better I was. He puts his arm around me and he goes, dude, I want you to punch Donald Trump in the face. And I look at him and I go, dude, that's a felony, man. Donald Trump wants us to fight him on his turf, on his terms, using his tactics. That's not how we win. We win by inspiring each other, by getting more people off the sidelines, by elevating the conversation, by not letting him bring out the worst of us, but us meeting this moral moment with the best of who we are. You know, I have faced outrageous elections before. Some of y'all may have seen the Oscar-nominated movie called Street Fighter. Listen, I'm telling you right now, I should have my chest puffed up. I'm in an Oscar-nominated movie, but you know, then it loses in the Oscars to a movie called March of the Dagnab Penguins. I'm sorry, they're not cute. I'm a vegan, but now I make an exception for penguin meat. No, some of the vegans are mad. What? No, don't tell me that. I've faced bullies before, I've beaten them. I faced demagogues before, beaten them. Tough challenges, overcome them. And Newark, the way we did that is by inspiring more beloved community. Not by dividing our city against itself. We started doing things that people said couldn't get done in the middle of a recession. Tens of thousands of new jobs. Taking our school system from state takeover to the #1 school system in America for beat the odds schools. Creating in food deserts, urban farms and new supermarkets. Taking over our court system and transforming it to better reflect the dignity of all the people that come there, from our veterans to our youth. We did things people said couldn't be done, not because of one person, but because we restored a more beloved community. This is our test right now. Because I don't want to go back to the glorious days simply before Donald Trump, because on my block, in an inner city community where Shahad Smith was shot with an assault rifle, where my neighbors work full-time jobs but still go to the local bodega to use food stamps, we had serious challenges before that are unconscionable. China just built 18,000 miles of high-speed rail, and we're still debating infrastructure. Literally, the Northeast Corridor running from Boston to D.C. runs half an hour slower than it did in the 1960s. We used to be the best educating country on the planet Earth. This is why so much of my plans have to do with young people, have to do with education, from college education and debt-free college all the way to investing in public schools again and raising salaries of teachers. But let me tell you right now, other countries, look at what we did. Our public schools used to be the envy of the world. It's the reason why we used to lead humanity with the largest expansion of middle class, for poverty middle class ever. But now we're getting past. Because other countries looked at what we did and they said, hey, you know, they got this great K-12, we're going to outinvest in them that, but you know, we believe in science. So we know that the brain is most developed from the second, third trimester to the third or fourth year. So you know what other countries are doing now? They have universal prenatal care. We don't. We lead industrial nations in infant mortality, maternal mortality. We actually cost ourselves more by not taking care of pregnant women. This is why one of my plans is some common sense stuff that actually saves money, like giving low-income women access to doula care. This is why other countries, we need to start leading again. They have universal preschool. We don't. I can show you the balance sheet analysis that every dollar invested in universal preschool in our country actually increases economic growth by multiples of that. Other countries have paid family leave. We don't. In fact, every of our industrial nations has paid family leave. Afghanistan and the Congo have paid family leave, y'all. Because other countries know that when you invest in your most valuable natural resource, and it's not oil, gas, or coal, the most valuable natural resource in a global knowledge-based society is the genius of our children. And this gets us back to that idea again, investing in each other. I am running a campaign that is not based on one guy. It is getting us in this country to start talking about our common values, our common ideals, and our common cause again. We cannot, I'm telling you, I'm excited about the policy proposals that I have, but we have lost elections before with far better policy plans. Hell, the guy that's in the office now won an election just simply saying, I know more about our generals, I know more about everything, only I can solve these problems. The team with the best policy is not always the team that wins. But we win elections as Democrats. We saw it in the past. We win elections when we remind folks who we are, when we call the common aspirations of this country, when we expand our coalitions and move this nation forward. We are literally celebrating the 50th anniversary, not of my parents moving into a new town, but of literally putting a human being on the moon. And we were able to develop national, larger coalitions. But I'm telling you, if I have my way, we again in this country, in our generation, will do things that seem to be impossible. We will defy gravity. But I want to tell you exactly what it takes, and I want to end with this story because I'm hoping people here will leave compelled to get more involved. Look, we have a pathway to victory in this campaign that is incredible. We're already getting stories about our early state organizing because we're focusing on the grassroots. We see the Des Moines Rich and others. We're the top 1 or 2 campaigns and best teams on the ground in states like New Hampshire and Iowa, because I know that's how we win. And you're talking to an organizer who had to beat a machine. The polls didn't reflect our pathway to victory, but we beat them because we out-organized them. And I hope you all know that polls, at this point, I'll tell you, you have a reality that at this point, you know, in other elections, when Carter went on to be president, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, the polls didn't speak to their destiny, what they were doing in those early states, organizing grassroots, connecting with people, inspiring them, energizing them. That's the pathway to the presidency. But that is a pathway that's not reliant on one individual, it's reliant on folks like you. We need to make sure that folks understand that their responsibility, the most common way people give up their power is not realizing they have it in the first place. So my hope and prayer is that you understand that this election is not about someone else, somewhere else. It's about the actions we take, and do not minimize the power of small acts. To me, that's always what's transformed this country, and that's why I'm telling this last story. But I hope you leave here determined to do something else in the cause of this country in this moral moment. Take another action in this 2020 election. I hope you'll go to our website, find ways to get involved. We're going to do more things down here in D.C., the city of my birth. The city that we need to make a state, y'all.
Baby bonds. Talk about baby bonds.
Somebody yelled out baby bonds. I love to know my policy, man.
Baby bonds. Talk about baby bonds.
So look, I got down to Washington, D.C. My father pushed me out of this house that I grew up in, and he fought to get us in. I went to Stanford, Oxford, Yale. My dad was not impressed. He's like, boy, you got more degrees in the month of July, boy, but you ain't hot. You ain't hot. Life is not about the degrees you get. It is about the service you give. And so I left to go to New York to start as a tenants' rights lawyer because people fought for my housing rights. I was going to pay it forward by fighting for other people's housing. I run for mayor, get beat by some penguins. I go on to the United States Senate, and then I decide to do in the Senate what a lot of senators do who have a high sense of self-regard. I decided to write a book. And if your name is Booker, it's a lot of pressure, everybody. And so I had to fact check my dad's stories. He had passed away. How big was the dog, for crying out loud? And so I go back to find the people from 50 years ago who helped my family move in. The head of that organization from the 1960s was easy to find because at 92 years old, she is still head of that organization. And now she doesn't represent black folks, lots of black folks in Bergen County, New Jersey. She represents same-sex couples. She represents Muslim families. She represents Americans with disabilities. Because justice has no color, it has no race, it has no orientation. There is one nation, one love, one justice, one country under God. And I'll tell you this, she confirms all the facts. It was not a pack of wolves, it was just a dog. And then she sends me to the lawyer who organized everything to interview him, and I was blown away. This conversation shook me. It reaffirmed my core values. This conversation speaks to why I'm running for president. I call this guy up. He's an 84-year-old retired New Jersey judge, and I said, "Court, I know who you are." Okay? He confirms all the facts of the story. But when I was finished with all my questions for the chapter, I suddenly asked myself, I got one more question, sir. You see, he told me he was struggling to make it. He was barely making ends meet. He had just started his business. And so the question I had, it wasn't on my sheet, it was just a simple question, 3 letters. Why? Why would you, at a time that you were barely making it with your own family, spend so much time helping black families move into your neighborhood at a time that people were afraid of white flight and real estate prices going down? Why would you do it? And what he said blew me away. He said, "Well, I remember the moment I made the decision." And I'm like, "The moment?" He goes, "Yeah, I remember the moment. It was March 7th, 1965. Now, I know a lot about history, but that date didn't ring a bell at that point to me. So I said, "Okay, what was going on March 7th, 1965? And he goes, "Well, I was sitting at home on my couch watching TV." Now, most of you guys are too young to remember when we only had 3 channels in America, for crying out loud. And they would like go off at 11 o'clock and it'd be done, no more TV. I said this to a high school in Nevada. One of the high school kids is like, "What did you guys do?" And I said, "It was, hey, we found things to do at night. The birth rate was higher. When we found and so he's sitting on a couch in New Jersey, watching TV. There was no Netflix and chill back then. You had to work in the evenings. Okay, so he's watching TV, sitting on the couch. And the movie he was watching, I could look up. The movie was Judgment at Nuremberg. And most of America's watching this movie, then something really historic happened on that day. They broke away from an ongoing movie, breaking news in our generation every 5 minutes for the most trivial reasons. It's like Melania has a jacket, breaking news. But this was actually really rare back then. They broke away from Judgment at Nuremberg in America to show a bridge in Alabama. You see, these marchers had started in Selma and were trying to march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to go to Montgomery, and they got stopped by Alabama state troopers who would not let them pass. And then what's happened next is why we call this day Bloody Sunday. This man on a couch in New Jersey watches as these state troopers shoot tear gas at these marchers. And then these unarmed marchers start scrambling, but they get overtaken by the state troopers who storm into them on horseback, wielding billy clubs, running into them and start beating them viciously. Well, one of those marchers has always been my hero. Now he's my colleague. His name is John Lewis. Than me, but he's a giant to me. I look up to the brother, and he says to me very humbly, very regally, he says, "Cory, I shed a little bit of blood on that bridge." Congressman, I am sorry. You had your head split open. He had to be carried back to the church to safety. And so what does one man, one white guy on a couch in New Jersey do? Does he just sit there and say, "That's a shame, someone do something about this, somebody should do something"? No, it was a moral moment in America. Does he allow his inability, like I've done in the past, does he allow his inability to do everything to undermine his determination to do something? No. This is a moral moment in America. So he stands up in the name of patriotism and says, "You know, I can't afford a plane ticket to Alabama. I can't even close my business one day, but he does not let challenges or inconveniences stop him from doing what he can. He decides to himself, he says to me, that I'm just going to do the best I can with what I have, where I am. And he gets up off that couch and says to himself, you know what, let me call around and see whom I need. I can afford 1 hour of pro bono work a week. And he calls around and he finds this young woman named Lee Porter. He says, ma'am, do you need some help? She's like, hallelujah, I need some help. And the two of them start working, and he says 65 turns to 66, turns to 67. Now they've organized other people, more lawyers are involved. He says 68 turns to 69, and he says, Cory, and I go, yes, sir. He goes, that was a day in 69. I get this case file handed to me, and he goes, there was 2 names on this case file. You know what the names were? I go, no, sir. He says, the 2 names on that case file were Cory and Carolyn Booker, a young couple trying to move up to Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, I would not be here right now if it wasn't for this kind of love. I wouldn't be a United States Senator if it wasn't for one guy on a couch, inspired by artists of activism on a bridge 1,000 miles away, standing up in a moral moment, not underestimating his power, not surrendering it, but doing something more for his country when the moment called it. And this is a moment. What will we do in a moral moment? Will we surrender ourselves to circumstance? Will we allow our inability to do everything to undermine our determination to do something more in the cause of our country? Will we treat democracy like a spectator sport? Or will we get on the field, pick up a plow, and get to work? Because we know there's a crisis. I take you to end with this metaphor, but it shook me when I was a kid, when I first went to Memphis as a young boy, young man, and I saw that where King was killed at the Lorraine Motel, they did not write a tribute to him right where he was slain. Instead, written there are words from Scripture that I want to end with. And by the way, it has nothing to do with religion. It's a challenge to our generation. Hell, I'm just one of those people, that one of these Christians, I would rather hang out with a nice atheist than a mean Christian any day of the week. Before you tell me about your religion, show it to me and how you treat other people, y'all. But this is civic gospel. What's written there is a challenge, and it's words from Scripture, from the Torah, from the Quran, from the Bible. It says the words of Joseph's brothers there. Now, Joseph's brothers sought to kill Joseph with his coat of many colors, his dream interpreter, and they grabbed Joseph and threw him into a pit to die. But you know Joseph didn't die in that pit. He rose on up to go lead a nation through crisis, Egypt. We're in a pit right now, y'all. We're in a pit because we could be the first generation of Americans that has a lower life expectancy than the one before. Deaths of despair, suicide, opioid addiction. We're in a pit right now because we have the courage to sing the national anthem that ends with Home of the Brave, but not the courage, the moral courage, the common cause to deal with our brave people, men and women coming home from overseas, our veterans who are overrepresented in homelessness, 10% of our homeless. We're in a pit right now where people work and don't have jobs with dignity. People get sick and don't have health care to save their lives. And so this message is to us, not to King's generation, but to ours. And it says the words of Joseph's brothers, which are a challenge to us, that point out our choice. It says there where King was slain at the Lorraine Motel, it says, behold, here cometh the dreamer. Let us slay him and see what becomes of the dream. I ask you right now to keep that question on your heart as you leave here in the days ahead. What will become of the dream? The dream that our ancestors died for Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner in Mississippi, they died for, and beaches from Iwo Jima to Normandy. What will become of our dream? The dream that was elevated when we came together and worked together and built new American majorities together. What will become of the dream? Will it become diminished? Will it become divided? Will it become divided against itself? Or will we stand up and say, I will dream America anew, a more courageous dream, a bold one, a more defiant dream. I will take responsibility for the dream. It will not die in my generation. If we are willing to dream like that and love like that and work like that and heal like that and sacrifice like that, then our tomorrows will be better than our yesterdays. Then we can get us to a point in this nation, as Scripture said, where justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Then we can be a nation that will not perish in the pit, but we will rise again and defy gravity in our generation. That is your choice. This is not a 2020 election about one office and one person. It is about us. And if we have our way, if I have my way, our greatest achievement will not be just beating Donald Trump. Hell, I'm ready to do that. But our greatest achievement will be, we will be the generation, not just to get to the mountaintop, but to make sure that this nation is, for all of its people, the promised land. Thank you, everybody.